I have always preferred the solitude of deep space, either exploring desolate planets or spending week after week alone in the void between worlds. This existence is so ingrained in me by now that it simply cannot be any other way. When I am alone, I feel free. When no other gaze falls upon me and shapes me in its image, only then can I be myself completely. When I am the only observer. But when I was young and lived among others, their talk and opinions clouded my self, and to find my own path in life, I had to seek solitude and silence in a place I had never been before. So I traveled to Gethen Prime, and I spent almost a full year in the caves of Stillness, hoping to get to know myself. In their underground dwellings, just below the surface, the Astocans of Gethen Prime practice their philosophy of balance. They are very selective and admit but a handful of new students every year. I did not know this. I just showed up one day. I told them this was the place for me and settled down. It was a sort of bluff, of course, and I soon realized that they were most likely to send me away. But after a short discussion, they assigned me a room, told me, "You will grow sick of this place," and left me alone. My room was a small cave. It had 2 small mattresses and a window too high up on the wall to see out through. It was, like all the other little caves, and the bigger ones too, made by hand centuries ago. In the caves, we were protected from the desert heat, but still close enough to the surface to get daylight and fresh air through numerous little windows and small openings in the rock. At this point in my life, such an ascetic way of living really appealed to me. I spent my first week just getting used to my new surroundings and learning to find my way around the labyrinthian cave system. It seemed so simple to live here, not necessarily easy, but straightforward. There were little in the way of material possessions here. Nothing to buy. One dish served with every meal, and no entertainment to be had. There were fewer choices to be made, fewer things to do, so each thing could be done completely, slowly, and with complete focus. Time seemed to slow down here. There were no distractions. My roommate was a young woman called Esha. Eventually, I found out that she was the reason I was allowed to stay. The only one who offered to share her room with me. Esha told me that the caves were even more extensive than I thought. It was only the rooms closest to the surface that were permanently inhabited. But apparently they stretched far underground, and not all of them were mapped. Deeper caves were used for what Esha called expansions of the self, consisting of rituals, meditation in greater seclusion, and, to my surprise, concerts. Slowly, I settled into daily life in the caves. I got 2 hearty meals a day in the mess hall. The food was good, and after a while, I got used to eating only at dawn and dusk. Water was a valued resource, used for drinking and cooking only. And solar-powered sonic showers were one of the few signs of modern technology present in the caves. In the morning, I did chores, as did everyone else. When that was out of the way, the afternoon was open for learning. I learned to meditate. I learned to empty my mind. Later, I learned to focus on only one thing: my breath, a flame, or the sounds surrounding me. In the evenings, we talked and read poetry. I mostly just listened. I was told that the goal of meditation was to experience the world directly, without a filter, to peel back layers of thought and assumptions and prejudice. In metaphysics, balance is a point between 2 opposite forces, which is preferable over one state or another. It is, therefore, easy to assume that this balance point is somewhat fixed. Arosha, the Astocan master I talked with the most, told me that balancing can be an act of moving back and forth, as well as being in stillness. Often, movement was necessary to locate the balance point, and sometimes a balance point was something you circled and never reached, like a planet around a star. But eventually, through meditation and seeking to live in balance, you should reach a state of relaxed stillness. a simple awareness without strain or struggle. The Astocans believe that we cannot know the consequences of our actions, whether they are good or bad, so it's often best to just let the world be. But Arosha also told me that the caves of stillness are not still at all. They are slowly worn down by time, like everything else, subjected to entropy. One day, the whole mountain will be gone. The stillness of the Astocans is not about immobility. It's about letting the world run its course in peace. I was happy in the caves of stillness. It was a peaceful existence. But it still bothered me that I seemed to make so very little progress. The longer I stayed, the less tangible my goal seemed to me. I lost track of it, and I started to feel like there were no answers. There were concepts I could study, but every time I thought I had learned something new, I was told that something contradictory was also true. Maybe this is what balancing between two opposites was like. You could never choose just one. This is when I told Esha that the gatekeepers that didn't want to let me in might have been right. Esha then told me that I struggled too much. I had to let go of my goals. To let understanding stop at what cannot be understood is a high attainment, she said. And then she leaned in closer and whispered, "It is supposed to be mysterious, you know. And the mystery is supposed to be attractive at first, and then become more difficult. You are supposed to accept not knowing, or get frustrated and leave." And with a little wink, she added, "If you like it here, stay a little longer." And so I did. When you meditate, there is nothing to hold on to, and nothing to chase after. You just sit. I appreciated it more and more. I felt refreshed and centered after a session, like nothing could bother me. I was more even-tempered than before, more patient. I still took things seriously, but nothing that happened could shake me. I had found my balance point. Then, one day, Arosha invited me to a concert to give me a self-expanding experience he said. So I went with him and about 20 other acolytes further into the caves than ever before. We formed a line and held hands as the light dimmed around us and it became difficult to see. We fell silent. I still remember the atmosphere of quiet anticipation. The shuffling of feet on the stone floor, the slight hissing of every oil lamp we passed. Eventually, there were no more lights, and we proceeded, slowly and carefully, guided by the person in front of us, and guiding the person behind. The two warm hands I held in my own became my most acute sensations. Then our footsteps started to echo. We had entered a much larger cave. Each of us were led to a stone seat and told that the concert were about to start. I had the feeling we were in some sort of amphitheater. The shuffling around me gradually subsided and all became quiet. Without vision or sound, my world had shrunk to the feeling of the stone beneath me and the dusty air I was breathing. The silence lasted a long time. And then a bell struck softly, and I could feel it like waves through the air. A clear shape that I could see, but not with my eyes. It was the strangest sensation. The echo of the bell had barely disappeared when new notes filled the air. Soon, I was bathing in a complex web of sound, sometimes forming melodies, other times shifting into something improvised. Enveloped in waves of sound, I could somehow sense the shape of the cavern around me. I could feel it on my skin, like an awareness of how far away a solid surface was. Was this some sort of echolocation or some related phenomena? A sense that someone without sight could develop over time, but somehow attained instantaneously here. I was processing sound waves as I would light, but in the process I did not perceive myself. I could feel the curve of the wall over there, or that boulder on the other side, but my own location in the cave was not present. Internal and external merged, like my body had no end to it, no edge, or was not there at all. I filled the whole cave. Then the music changed, and the cave crumbled to nothing around me. Instead, I sensed a much larger space, planets and solar systems, constellations in the night sky, the whole universe around me. I saw strange planets not mapped before, an entire nebula, whole galaxies seen from a great distance. It lasted, I do not know how long, ages, or just a few minutes. I barely remember the walk back. The next few days I was restless, and not long after I left the Astocans and returned to the spaceport and went home. I left because I wanted to experience that again. Space. To explore it again, but for real. I couldn't let go of that feeling. That's why I became a deep space pilot. And I do get that same feeling in space. Still, after all these years, the same feeling of an expansion of the self, of vastness and immensity, but only on desolate worlds, not the ones filled with life and people. You might say I've been chasing it, and I most often find it after being alone for weeks at a time, exploring desolate worlds or traveling the void between them. I still meditate. It brings me peace and focus, like there is a calm pillar at my core that nothing can shake. And when I stand on one of those empty worlds and look up at the sky, I can still hear Arosha's words. Quiet the mind, and the soul will speak.